There we go. All right. So lead generation. This was Luke's idea. This was not a Stan's business presentation. This is more of a training presentation because we didn't have another speaker for the day. And so this was one of those training opportunities. Luke came up with the idea that he liked something that I said in one of these meetings about lead generation and wanted me to talk about it and do some training for the group. So essentially, that's what this is today. So it's not about Stan Shields, it's about lead generation but you get my take on it. So that's the difference. You get my perspective on it. So let's first define what is lead generation. And actually, Michael, do me a favor and put on the timer on the clock, like, what is it? 15 minutes is what is the max that we wanted with this, but put that on there and then tell me as I get closer to like 10 minutes or whatever. So, all right, lead generation, the marketing process of stimulating and capturing interest in a product or service for the purpose of developing a sales pipeline allows companies to nurture targets until they're ready to buy. I read a whole bunch of definitions on lead generation, and most of them point to its marketing and nurturing and having a pipeline of leads. And so most people, well, you know what, let me not dive into it. I'm jumping ahead on my own presentation here. So lead generation to sales. Most of the time, people, small business owners especially, are thinking about the sale. We're not really thinking about a lead. We don't really even use that word as often. Sometimes it's we use a word that's a prospect or whatever, but there's a few steps involved in getting a person from being a lead and turning them into a prospect and turning them into a customer and hopefully delighting them to the point where they're now a raving fan and they're promoting your business for you. Okay. Very first step, know your customer avatar. Who is your ideal customer? So before we can actually even start generating leads, we need to know who is it that we're trying to talk to. We hear Michael all the time say, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. So who is that ideal customer? And I'm amazed when I start thinking about all kinds of marketing activities. This is the number one question, the number one first step that we always come back to is, who's the avatar? Who is it that we're really trying to talk to? And we tend to gloss over this. We think we know it in our head, but we really never go and write it down. We really never go and do the exercise of putting it on paper to then be able to go back and read it or state it to someone clearly. So who is the ideal client? There's 4 basic questions here that relate to this. The first one is, who's my ideal client? So what are their demographics, meaning age, gender, location, that kind of stuff? What kind of characteristics does my ideal client have? Are they in certain careers, certain titles, certain industries? What other characteristics can you figure out about them? And then, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Interests. Are they pet owners, wine lovers? Do they have a certain hobby, certain thing that specifically speaks to you being able to connect with them? And then where do I find them? Are they online? Are they offline? And another question to kind of throw in with where do I find them is, how can I help them find me? And then what can I offer as bait? What can I use as a carrot to get them to say, hey, tell me more about what it is that you do? And then the last question is, what result do I want them to get from working with me? And so when I had the martial arts business, my avatar was extremely clear. That is still today my best analogy. I was looking for a mom with children between the ages of 3 and 12 who lives within 3 miles of my school and has an annual family income of $75,000 or more. I also want them to be dealing with some kind of a behavioral issue, whether it is confidence, respect, focus, or discipline with their child. When I found that person, I knew that person was my ideal client because everything else stemmed from that. If I brought in that person, you see, when I brought in the mom that had the kids between 3 and 12, I would also get sometimes the mom in my kickboxing. I would get the dad in my taekwondo. I would get the teenage son who had been resisting martial arts forever. I would get them to join because they got to sit on the sideline and watch their little brother or sister do it. And I would get them in there. But I didn't go looking for all those others. I went looking for the mom that had the kids between the ages of 3 and 12. The others flowed along as part of the process. They were a part of the value ladder, so to speak. As a small business, for right now, who am I looking for? I'm looking for independent small business owners who understands the power of marketing and is willing to invest at least $150 a month into growing their business. They're not afraid and they are willing to embrace technology and they're ready to take action right now. So that gives me a clear picture of who is it that I'm trying to find. And then I have to answer those other questions. Where do I find them? So before we dive into lead generation strategies and whatnot, let's talk about the sales funnel. And this funnel is not a computer software. This has nothing to do with your computer. This has to do with the stages, the steps that it takes to bring a person from knowing nothing about you to now wanting to be able to do business with you. And the first step is awareness. Whenever we go to a networking meeting, whenever we we put out an ad, or if we put something out there on social media, you name it, most of the population doesn't know anything about our business. Most of them, or they don't know anything about us. In the case of a Mark Pico or a Zainab Hamza, they know a little bit of something about real estate. They know a little bit of something about insurance. They know what they don't like. They have their preconceived notions. They've got awareness of what this is, but they don't really know you. They don't know who you are, what you do, how you do what you do. So we're starting to build awareness, not only around the product or the service, but around us as well. And so that awareness is really the stage one for prospecting. It's where it all starts. And depending on how much they know and where they are, it takes them through to the next phase, I can't even talk, of discovery. Okay, so that now we then get to start asking them questions so we can qualify the leads. We get to have that initial meeting, or we get to define what is it that they need so that we can further define, can I actually help them or not? Okay. And then the next phase is going to be the evaluation phase, where we say, yes, I can help you. Here's my offer. And then the next phase is the intent for them saying, yeah, I like it. I like what you have to offer, or no, I don't, or I have more questions or whatever. And then closing the deal is the next step that happens. You guys have pretty much all heard me say at one time or another, 2% of people buy on the first touch, and 80% of people buy somewhere between the 5th and the 20th touch. And it doesn't matter if you're selling a $10 product or you're selling a $2,000 product or a $10,000 product. The 2% that buy on that first touch are the 2% that have already been looking. They've already got the awareness. They're already familiar with what it is. You happen to show up at the right time and they're able to take advantage of it because you had a good deal or a good offer for them. The 80%, they still have to figure it out. They still have to decide, oh, okay, is this worth it for me? Do I want to do this? Do I need this? How does this really work? So this sales funnel is a sales funnel that works whether you are online, whether you're offline. It's the same process. The difference is how we take them through the funnel, okay? One of the articles I was reading, and I think this one, I don't remember where this one was, but it said that B2B marketers say that 65% of their leads come from referrals, 38% from email, and 33% come from search engine optimization. Now that's for B2B marketers. I'm not sure exactly what it is for B2C, but this little chart shows you what else shows up on that. So 33% search engine optimization, and social media is about the same at 33%. For everybody that likes to say email is dead, email is still higher than social media. It's still higher than the search engine optimization. It's still higher than the trade shows. It's still higher than the networking groups. It's still higher than all of those things, but you have to figure out how to get people into your email. So in the first place. And so this is another little chart that talked about B2B, B2C, and then I don't even know what this is, B2B and B2B to C. But it shows you the different avenues or the different strategies for generating these leads. And you can see the different categories here. I put this on here because the other is one that is bigger than all of the others. And the way the guy wrote it in the article is he said, other simply means that they don't know where the lead came from. And so there is something with lead generation that I don't know how to describe it. David may actually know a name and have a name for it, David or Michael. But there's something I experienced in the martial arts business, and that was I would have 20 different marketing activities going on, meaning I would be at elementary schools, I'd be at parks, we would be doing these outside events, I had ads running, I had lots of different activities going on. And when I had those going on, I had a high level of leads coming into my business. And then I got really smart. And I mean that facetiously. I got really smart and I said, I'm going to narrow this down to only the businesses where I can see that I got leads from. And when I did that, all of the lead volume dropped. So there's something to be said about having lots of activity, lots of things going on that's generating leads, because you never really know where a person came from. They may have seen you in 2 or 3 different other places, but then they took action on the 4th or the 5th place. And that's the one they told you about. Or they said, I don't know where I saw you. I see you guys all over town. I used to hear that all the time. We see you guys all over town.
Stan, it's called brand recognition.
Okay, brand recognition. All right. So, and that probably was true because I had a big van that had, our logo and everything else on the side, and they'd see me picking up kids at elementary schools and all that. And then they saw our logo everywhere, all of that stuff. And so, but then when I really peeled it back to only do those things that I thought made the most sense, because my computer software told me this is where your leads came from, then everything went down. So the activity and all of that, there's something to be said about doing more, even though you may not realize that it's having an impact. Quite often it's having more of an impact than you realize. So 12 lead generation strategies. And I'm going to give you an article that lays this out specifically and where she goes into more detail. I'm going to give you that article at the end. But here's a few things that, Michael, turn your mic on and tell me where we are time-wise.
I'm sorry. We are at 216, 215, going down to 2.
Oh, okay. So I'm almost out of time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to run through these. I'm going to blow through these really fast because you'll be able to read the article and get the details. But leverage chatbot conversations. What you probably don't know, that is, if you have a business page, you actually have a very basic chatbot that's attached to your Facebook page that you could start to leverage that. You just got to go find it and set it up. The gated content, that's the content that you create that someone has to give you their name, email, or just their, and their phone number or whatever. They have to give you their information in order to get it. So Creating gated content. David talked about creating content earlier and having a strategy behind creating that content, creating that gated content and having a strategy behind how you use it and how you promote it is important. A value-packed newsletter. Put information in that newsletter that people can't wait for. They want to get it every single month. And if you've identified who your ideal client is, then you'll have more people that are anxious and ready to read that newsletter because it's speaking directly to them. Host an event. This is one of my favorites now, that hosting an event, whether it's a webinar, a workshop, a seminar, a meetup group, a conference, a Blitzer event, a whatever kind of an event that you can do that now brings people together so that they learn to know, like, and trust you. They learn more about you. And so those kinds of events helps you to generate leads. Provide a freemium product or a free trial if you have that ability. A freemium just means something that you give away, and you're going to give away something online and they have to give you their contact info in order to get it. And then optimize your website to promote your lead magnet. Most websites have the contact me as the only option for somebody to connect. Put a lead magnet right on the front, somewhere on the page that entices them to connect with you and give you their info. This one is one of the ones I really love. Use the social media platform, the banner or the learn more button or that button that's a call to action. Use that to promote your lead magnet or your opportunity for people to connect with you, for you to have something of value that you can give to them and collect their information. And then, of course, you can go the pay to play route, pay to promote your business on social media through ads and whatnot. Use targeting and segmenting, and that is supposed to say retargeting too, I think. But targeting and segmenting just really means being very clear about who your target is and getting the message right for that particular segment of the group. And then targeting top of the funnel keywords, like the keywords that people would search for. I put this little ad right here because it says, how much house can I afford? That's a keyword phrase that somebody would likely type into Google. And that's what one of your keywords that you might want to have in your ad to try and draw attention. Here's where I had the retargeting. So retarget the people who have already engaged with your brand. So if they've come to your website before, I then want to be able to retarget them to try and get them to come back to my website. And then create a referral system that you're able to encourage them to come and do, refer people to you. And so then some of the offline B2B strategies, right? What are the show up? And that might mean knocking on some doors. That might mean, going to certain events and connecting with people and then following up. It might mean that you just got to figure out where your ideal prospects are. One of my ideal customers are these vendors who are out at vendor booths. And it's turning out that the best way for me to connect with them is to go to the vendor event and try and talk to them briefly, because otherwise I get thrown out of the event by the event host. So I have to talk with them very quickly. Pick up the phone, dialing, but create an email and phone system so that maybe you send them a introductory email message and follow it up with a phone call. And then they get another email message and then a follow up with a phone call so that you get them a little bit warmed up to taking your call if you can get through to them. And then, of course, find better events, find the events that make the most sense for you. All right, this is almost the last slide. Well, this actually is the last slide before the resources. And so lead scoring, think about this. It's easy to do this from an automated standpoint, but also it's not that difficult for you to do it if you don't have an automated process, but you do it manually. If a person takes a certain action, then they get a certain score, okay? Whether that is visiting my page or if that is them giving me a call. If I then send them some information or they download an ebook, did they take action on it? Give them a score from that. and you look to see what actions is it that people are taking. And each time they take an action that moves them further up the chain, that gives them a higher score. And the ones that have the highest score are your best candidates. They're your best prospects. So those are the ones that you then want to spend more time trying to connect with them, because they're the ones that are coming forward and showing the interest. Now, this slide isn't really meant for you to try and copy it or do anything there. This slide is actually meant for me to remind me to go and find this resources, because I'm going to just take this and post it in the chat for you so that you don't actually have to try and write any of that stuff down or anything like that. So while I am shutting this down, does anybody have any questions?